Okay, here we go with part two, getting it started. This is going to be a slight deviation from part one, but I want to use this to express a couple more concepts when it comes to 3D modeling. So here we have a cylinder, or rounded cylinder, with an internal diameter of 30 millimeters and an external diameter of 60, and we can kind of see the dimensions from here. And I'll pop this back up as I need it to. So this one is works kind of like an extension of the first example that we did. So the first way I'll start building it is just by going out from there. And again, one of the things that I want to highlight is that it really comes down to how you want to lay it out, being able to kind of rotate your view or align it in a way. So just shift the middle mouse button will let you like kind of rotate the will let you rotate the view plane here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating a sketch. And then again, orientation isn't too big of a deal, but I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it around. So I'll pick this top plane here. This should be the XY plane. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to just go ahead and put the outline piece. I'll just start it drawing like I did the first time. Okay, so what I'll do is I will start with doing two arcs, and I'll just put them around each other like this. Okay, kind of going back to how we finished up part one. And then remember that I can go to the line tool, and then I'll highlight over this, and I'll highlight to here, and those will create those coincident. It kind of put an auto constraint in there. And I'm okay with that. And then now one thing here is you'll see that it'll give me an automatic perpendicular constraint. I like auto constraints, but sometimes I want to turn them off because then you want to be careful with them because sometimes you'll put in relations that you don't mean to. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm just going to draw this over here and then press escape, and then I'm going to select these 2 points and then go from that. And then I'll put a coincident constraint here. So one of the things about auto constraints is that especially stuff like that, sometimes it'll be trying to help you out, but it'll kind of get in the way. And in this particular instance, I didn't want that to be parallel. I mean, I think the thing when it comes to putting constraints in your sketches is you want to put just enough. So I'll go ahead and put this here, select those 2 points, make them coincident, and then I will put my point here and make that coincident. I think it's always good to kind of anchor your sketches to the to the origin point, just because things can float and move around. And while I could definitely put these coincident to each other, I'm actually just going to use construction lines here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a line between here, and then I'm going to again put a line from here to here, and I'm going to make both of these vertical. So I'm going to make that horizontal, and I'll make that horizontal as well. Now there's also an option where if you select these, you can hit line type and you can make it to construction. And basically what construction lines do is that they don't activate when you're doing features like extrudes, revolves, but they're also a good way to kind of imply constraints. And I believe the hotkey, if you want to switch a line to a construction line, is X. Okay, so now I kind of have my dimensional setup here, and then I'll go back here to set up against this. Again, we want to remember that these are radiuses. Is if I go back to my image here, you'll see that I have 60 and 30 is what I'm working for. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the dimensions there. And I'll put that to be 20. No, that's going to be 10, excuse me, right? Or did I screw this up? 30, 15. There we go. 15. Okay, cool. I'm going to finish my sketch, and then you'll see how it's on here. And I think, again, the big thing to remember is that you can always kind of rotate the viewpoint here. So then I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go to the Create Revolve. Then it was smart, and I already picked my my face here, and then I have my profile selected. I'm just going to go ahead and select that axis. I could select one of the construction lines. I could select the edge here, or I could actually select my actual axis. There are always considerations for when you're doing this, but since we're keeping it pretty simple, it's not going to matter too much. So I'm just going to select this construction line. And the big thing here is that I want it to be partial, and I want to go to 180. All right, so now if I go that, and then I'll select this on the bottom here, and then I'll have my original piece. And then I can go back and do a little math. I guess I'm going to be checking my image a lot. and that's going to be 100 all the way down. Now, one of the things that's interesting here is that since I know that this is 16, this is going to be 30. If I was going to take this from how my drawing is set up, then 100 minus 30 here is going to be 70. So what I could do is I could select this face, create a sketch, and I'll create a sketch off of that face. And you can do conversions, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a couple of arcs, and then hopefully I can just select these edges, and then there is a, I will make a concentric, and then I'll also make, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, unequal constraint, just to kind of tie that to that as well. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll select this edge, and then I will do a concentric, and then I will do an equal constraint. Now you'll see that there's a projection tool. When you do stuff like this in Fusion, it'll automatically kind of infer the projection, but getting into that, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not even sure if I understand it cleanly, but it is something that's worth looking at. But for right now, we just want to go in there and start messing around. So I'll finish the sketch. Now, another thing that's useful to kind of think about it when you're working with this is that when you go down to the bottom here, you'll have a couple different display setting options. And specifically, I want to go to visual style, and you'll see some of the options here. You can do like shaded with no edges. You can do visual style and wireframe. So like when you're trying to see different stuff, because one of the things is that controlling your visibility is a really important thing when it comes to 3D models. So I'm just going to go back to shaded with hidden edges right now just to see that. But then also, when you go here, you can have your different bodies and your sketches. So generally your sketches make your features, and then when your sketches go to create a feature, they're auto hide. So if I hide that body, I still have that immediate sketch there. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're working with different stuff. And when you're moving fast in modeling, it's easy to skip past these relations, but it's a really good idea to kind of be very deliberate with what you're linking to what. So now since I have that sketch, I'm going to go and I'm going to extrude it. And then, oh, I should select the face. There we go. Select the face. It's going to go down, and then I'll put in 70, and then boom. There's my part. Okay. So I'll go ahead and save this. Captures. Let's move this to, actually, I'll just do screen captures. There we go. 309, and then we'll say part 2 option 1. I'll save that. Okay, so we have this part, pretty simple enough. So one of the things is that, again, we can go at this different ways. So I'll go back to a new design. I'll stick to part design here, assembly design and hybrid design, go into a couple different things, but we'll keep just a part design, keeping it simple. Create a new one. And then what I'm going to do is, whereas this first time I drew that semicircle and extruded from it, if I go back and I look at my option here, what I could do with revolves is I could think about just drawing it like as using 1/2 of the piece. So one of the things is that whenever you're doing like a revolve piece, you're basically cutting it in half and using an axis that lies on the edge of it. So again, not that it really matters with my plane here, but I'm just going to use this one. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to draw kind of a half cutaway of it. So I'm going to start with a 3-point arc. And again, I'll just go with my method of kind of just dropping stuff down and then putting the relations in later. And I'll do that. And then I'll go to my line tool. I'll do that here. And I'm going to want to, now again, there goes an auto constraint again with like the perpendicular constraint. So in this particular situation, it's not going to hurt that much, but just for like a design intent sort of way, I try to avoid that, but just be mindful of that when you're just clicking. Now also, one thing you can do is hold the control key. And when you hold the control key, the constraint won't auto go into it. So I'm going to click right there, and then I'm going to go here and here. And then I'll go ahead and I'll clean these up. So I'll go here and I'll make that vertical. I'll go here and I'll make that horizontal. I'll make that horizontal. And then I will go ahead and make these. Now, again, different ways that we can do this. I'll just make these tangent for right now. But I do want to talk about tangency a little bit later, but I'll save that for the next one. All right, so I'll make that tangent here. There we go. So now that's going to line up with all of these. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and I'll make these two concentric because I want them to have the same curvature. There we go. Okay. Now, I think I'll go ahead and I'll use construction lines again just to kind of get it to line up where I want it to. I'm a big fan of construction lines when it comes to modeling things. I'll just model that since I know it's going to work. So I'll go here, I'll press X to make these, those construction lines, and then I'll make this one horizontal, and then I'll make that one vertical. Oh, it still didn't give me what I wanted. So actually what I want to do is I want it to take another line from here to here, make that a construction line, and then I'll make that one vertical as well. There we go. All right, so that's just because I just like to, again, I think it's always a good idea to design towards your origin, and sometimes you can be deliberate about where you want the origin to be if you want it to, if you want things to be easier. So this one I just put it at the bottom. Okay, so then I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and dimension. I'll use my, go to my tool up here. I can do the shortcut, I can do hotkey D. And one of the other things to keep in mind is that when you're adding dimensions, you know, it can be different about whether you pick points or lines. And so I'll go to that one. I'll make that 100, right? And then I can go back to my, I'm forgetting what my image looks like. I have a width of 15 there. So I'll say dimensions. Say that's 15. And then what's interesting is that I could go ahead and put the radius here as a defining dimension, but because of how I've defined all of this, if I go down here and I make this, is it 15? You'll see that everything turns black as if it's fully defined. Yeah, that's 30 in there. So just to kind of demonstrate that, I was going to go from here, and if I go up here and dimension, and I make that 30, it's the same information given different ways. So one of the things about when you're laying out sketches and things of that nature, there's a lot of different ways to get to the same point, because since these are tangent and all these are perpendicular, I mean, excuse me, are horizontal and vertical, defining this as down here as 15 defines this radius, and since this radius is defined as 30, and you know this 15, this any radius has to be 30. So one of the things I think is very useful when you're putting down sketches is to not only, well, you want to put down the dimensions you need, but which dimensions are important to you are really, really useful to do when you're thinking about coming back and changing stuff. I think it's always interesting to think about how you're going to come back and change something. So I'll go ahead and finish the sketch, and then I always like to click my home button to get that. And then I can go ahead and go to my revolve tool. I'll select it already selects my profile here. And then I'll select my axis. And then I can click just right here. And then I'll actually want to do a full on this one. And then boom, same part. Now, one of the things when I kind of compare between these two is that it's really, even some people might say this is better because it uses less sketches and features, but it really comes down to how you want to create your part. So my big thing is that whatever gets you to your determined outcome is good, and then you can think about process. But when you're talking about working in like larger teams and working with other things, sometimes there are concerns that can override how you should draw a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more, even though this is kind of convoluted, but I just want to do one more view here with this one. So I'm again going to do the part design option, and then I'm just going to pick that again, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, oops, not that one. There we go. I'm going to create a sketch. There we go. There we go. Okay, cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to draw the overarching external kind of rounded top cylinder. So I'll just go here with the, where's it at, the arc, the center point arc, and I'll just draw that to here. And I'll put that to like right there. And then I will draw some lines from here. So I'll go down to here. And again, that's just my own thing, is I don't like, well, I'll keep the perpendicular. It's not going to hurt too much this time. And I'll just go all the way up here. So these are perpendicular. We still kind of get to the same way. And then I'll just add in some dimensions. I'll make this 60. Okay. Ooh, actually, I do need to think about how I'm going to do that. Oh, and then what I also need to do is I'll make this coincident. Boom. There we go. All right. Um, ooh, wait a minute. Why? Oh no. Okay, there we go. This line is can still move. I thought everything turned black. I was like, why is this fully defined? Okay, so I'm just going to go here and I'll click this edge. Oops. And also that's also a really important thing. One of the things that's really important is you want to clear your selection every once in a while, because I thought I was just dimensioning this, but I still had something kind of selected. So you'll see that you have kind of the blue edges. I like the escape key just to go ahead and clear what I have selected. So now if I go back to my dimension tool and I click that edge, then I can pull back. Okay, boom, I'm at 100. Oh, no, that put 10. Mess that up. Okay, so I'll put that as 100. And actually, I forgot that this is going to be a radius, so that should be 30. Made a little mistake there. Okay, cool. So now we're in business. So I'll finish my sketch. Okay, I'll just like to go back to a 3D view based off of general, and then I will go ahead and add a revolve. All right, so we all know from this. All right, and then I'll do select. All right, and then there we go. Okay, so one of the reasons, so now with this one, we need to draw the cavity in there. And while we definitely can do it in one sketch, I just wanted to do it this way to highlight how you can manipulate your viewpoint to put sketches inside of something. So I'm going to go ahead and go over my origin here, and I'm going to make my sketches visible so I can figure out which one I want. So what I want to do is I want to draw the takeaway on that plane in there. So that's going to be my XZ plane. And this might be a situation where I could either go to my display settings, set my visual display to wireframe so I could access it, or I could do my visual, or I could leave it with, well, actually, I'll leave it on wireframe. But what I also could do is I go to my bodies here and I could hide that. Now, this hides it from view, it's still there, right? So if I go back to my visual style, shade it with hidden edges, like I can do that. But hiding select parts of your bodies can make it easier to see what's going on here. So what I'll do is I'll actually put it back to visual style wireframe. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to select this. No, well, it actually has that selected. I think if you had control, you can select the. No, it's not gonna let me do that. So I'll just select the plane right here. So I'll hit that sketch there, and then boom, there we go. So now one of the things you can also think about is how you want to reference it to other kind of edges of the sketch, because you see I can highlight these, I can put this, but this is, again, since I don't want it to interfere, at least for the initial part, I'm just going to hide my body so I can draw it without any obstructions. So I'll do that. Okay, and then I'll put a line down here. All right, and then I will do an arc from here. I'll just do a 3-point arc, and I'll put that out. And I'll do a line down here, and then I will make this vertical, and then I'll select these two, and I'll apply a tangent constraint. And then what I'll do is, because I want to keep that same relationship there, I'll make that coincident, and then I'll make this dimension. I believe this is going to be what, 15 is what I said. All right, and then I'll go ahead and pop it here, and then I'll make a coincident there, right? And I'll have the same thing. Now, I could again look back to my thing here, do the math in my head, and say that I want this to be 100 minus 15 is going to be 85 high. But what I'd also like to do is just to make it visible. Let's see if it'll let me. Oops. There you go. Make that visible. If I could just grab this point here and see if it'll let me make it coincident to that. It will. So this is kind of nice in that I have my sketch here matched to kind of this edge, and you'll see that it adds an automatic little projection line. And this is kind of cool just for design intent, because if I made this directly 85 and I wanted to change this, um, it's I'd have to change it in two places. But since if I have it linked to that, if I go back and I change it, it will go from there. So now I have this sketch inside of, and we kind of see how that goes. And then what I can go is I can go back to that particular sketch, and I can go to my revolve tool, and then I can, or is it going to be me? No, I already have my profile. I can select my profile. I can select my axis. There we go. There we go. And then you'll see it'll give the operation cut or intersect. So, and join. So join, we just put it on top of it. Intersect's kind of interesting because it will let you, like you can do body addition and subtraction, but I'm just going to keep it to cut right now just to cut that piece out. So if I say cut, do that, and then that should give me my hole in there. And just before I drop this off, just to kind of show you the benefit of linking it to that bottom part, I can go back to this sketch here, edit sketch, and if I was going to say make this 120, edit my sketch, the hole will update with it. So I think this is a really cool type of thing to incorporate into your models because you can kind of imply relationships that you want to keep. Let me just go ahead and put this back just for the, and actually I can go down here. And also you can edit. One of the other things is you can get at this stuff in a bunch of different ways. So I can go down to the timeline down there. I can edit the sketch and I can put that back at 100. Okay, cool. All right, so if we edit that, boom, we are in business. All right, so yeah, so that's just a couple different ways to approach this, and we'll pick it up on the next one.